Are approved. Meeting minutes. Next, we have the retreat minutes from February 8th. Are there any comments, questions, or corrections on those minutes? And if not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, move.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the February 8th retreat minutes by Commissioner Sibley and seconded by Commissioner Norton. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Those are also approved unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have a report from the chairperson. I do not have anything in particular to review this evening, so we'll move on to communications from our HPC staff liaison. Jennifer.
I do not have too much to add beyond what is in the packet. So as far as general reporting, aside from we have had a couple of administrative COAs that we processed this month for things on the rear of a couple of homes, so that weren't impactful to any of the historic fabric necessarily. So beyond that, and I do anticipate that we would have one that would be coming to the commission in April if I receive follow-up from the property owner, so stay tuned on that. Otherwise, I do not have anything to add at the moment.
Okay. I do have a question or two.
Mm-hmm.
And I just lost it. Yes, no, sorry. Oh my goodness, it's been a long day. The survey report, thank you.
Yes.
I had it in my, we had discussed at the retreat the question of whether we needed to bring that back for a formal official approval, or is it just done and we don't need to officially sign off on it?
That is one of those follow-up items that fell off my follow-up list. So
yeah, that's why I'm here.
Well, I am waiting to get the InDesign, the actual document in editable format from the consultant, so that we can make those final tweaks that were needed. So, yeah, stay tuned. I'll come back to you on August with all of that, or in April.
April, yeah. August is a ways away. Yeah, right. It seems like it's been a long day for a lot of us.
This is my fourth public speaking gig in 2 days.
As a follow-up on that, and sort of related to August in a way, the other thing that we did discuss at the retreat was making a presentation to council with the survey report to let them, A, know that it got done and what it is, and then B, and perhaps more importantly, let them know that we would like to submit for some grants to do some of the continuing work. Knowing that the next grant cycle is October sounds like it's far away, but as we have learned over and over again, it comes up and all of a sudden it's gone. Yep. So
it's basically next week.
Yeah, right. Backing that off, I'd like to see if we, and knowing that it takes a while to get on council's agenda, I would like to push that up on our priority list.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will follow up on that as well. I do know Mayor Peck did look into, there was some communications I was copied on regarding the potential to use, if potential funding for any matching grants any matches that we needed. So I know that's on her radar screen.
Okay.
So, great. But I will follow up on that before the April meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you. That is all I had. Any other commissioners have questions for staff? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, Jen. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Where'd all my buttons go? Seriously. All right. It's not working. Hold on. I'm getting there. Seriously. Wait. Okay. There it is. I had to scroll back on the bottom. Sorry.
Well, I don't know if this is even worth all that effort, but no news, I presume, is no news, but I was just curious if there's any follow-up on, I think is it 846 Baker?
Thank you for the reminder. I actually did have follow-up on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me go back to my notes. I actually had notes for what I was going to talk about today. I take everything back. A little discombobulated today.
That's why I'm here too.
Yeah, so 844 Baker, I actually met with the property owner. They are pursuing doing foundation work and moving the building over. So they did get a quote that was less than he expected. So that is the route that he is going to go. So I would consider that a win. So they're gonna, I think the approach that he's thinking about taking is to move the building so that they could, do maybe an addition to the rear and then do maybe an accessory dwelling unit or of some sort on it. But yes, they are not going to tear down that house. So yes, so let's chalk that up to a win. Thank you for jogging my brain. The other thing I have.
Is he thinking of designating the home because it might be eligible? I mean, it might save him some money with all his renovations.
I don't know if he's looking to go that route at this point. At this point, I would say the fact that he's not trying to pursue demolition is a huge win for us. So yeah, I think So stay tuned. As I have more information on that, I'll let you know. But at this point, he's looking to do that foundation work and move the building, just move it over on the lot so they has more flexibility on doing some additions and such on it. So the other two things that are going on, so this is something I am going to request commission assistance with. On April 18th, we've been asked by the Longmont Museum. They have like a Friday afternoon series of talks. They are interested in having one on historic preservation and specifically on buildings that have been saved, but also maybe buildings that we've lost over the years. If that's something that anyone with institutional knowledge or interest would like to assist with or tag team with me on.
I'm taking the hint.
I'm just saying, it doesn't have to be you. I'm just saying, if the global commission, I can send you, let me find the time real quick on that. It is from, looks like 2:30 to 4:30 is when they hold them, is when it would be held.
Just put 2:30 a.m.
So anyone who is interested in assisting, tag teaming with me on that, just shoot me an email and we'll figure something out.
Okay, that sounds good. It does appear that my calendar is open for that, so.
Cool.
I will put in a placeholder, 2:30 to,
2:30 to 4:30 at the
4:30.
Longmont Museum,
Okay.
yes.
okay. All right.
And I will
Sounds good.
send you the information I have from Elizabeth on that. The other item is just more of an update than anything. The museum and LDDA, the Downtown Development Authority, are putting in a grant application for the State Historic Fund to do interpretive signage throughout downtown. So they asked staff to provide a letter of support. So staff provided a letter of support. So see what happens there.
So is that for the sorry.
Now that I get this figured out. Okay, Commissioner Norton.
Is that for the April round or for the October round?
I am not certain, but I would think for the April round.
Okay.
Unless the application deadline has already passed, but they were asking me to get stuff to them by
Okay.
Monday, so, which I've done.
That's great. Okay, I worry if we were both putting in something for October.
No, yeah.
And so, no, we do not support you. We want the money.
It's our money.
I'm just being selfish right now.
I
Okay.
understand. No, I think they're doing the the April, the first one. They're doing the first one. So those are the items I have. So my apologies for completely losing my train of thought.
Oh, thanks, Commissioner Jacoby, for picking that up. Along those lines, on that Baker Street, and maybe it's just a subtle mention when and if we get in front of council, I think it would be worth letting them know about that project because, we brought that whole demolition ordinance in front of them, something that the commission worked on for years, and it basically did exactly its job. It filtered what would have been an unfortunate demolition of an historic home without compromising the property owner's ability to do what they wanted to do. They could still develop the property, they could still subdivide it, and it created a potential for another home. I mean, it didn't adversely impact the property owner, and it didn't cause any conflict with the potential for new housing, right? So it really did work. And I think it's
Yep.
really important to point those things out because there's so much noise and stuff out there that when it works, it's really important to kind of put it back out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So,
Thank you. Yeah, all right, great. Okay, wonderful. All right. So we will move on at this point to public invited to be heard. Is there anyone out in the audience who is here to speak about a topic that is not otherwise on the agenda? Seeing no one, I will go ahead and close the public invited to be heard. We do not have anything on the agenda for a public hearing, so we'll move to new business, which is a series of updates. So again, these are not public hearings, they're just informational sessions. So the first one, 9A, is Ute Creek Silo update.
Thank you to the commissioners for letting me present to you this evening. My name is Sharice Montgomery, and I'm a senior project manager in our facilities group. If any of you have driven out to our down Highway 66, you've seen the improvements that we have made to the maintenance facility, and the silo is next. The existing silo has been there since approximately 1934. And it was deemed historic prior to our rehabilitation of the maintenance facility. You can see that there's some damaged block on the top. And then with the winds that we've had recently, there's been also some concerns with the metal chute. But really what we're planning to do is replace any really damaged block, again, trying to provide the same time frame of the block. So trying to find matching pieces is always a challenge. We don't happen to have any of those laying around. But we do have a great structural engineer board, as well as a rehabilitation company that will be doing the work. They'll be replacing some of the mortar as well and reconnecting some of the anchors that over time have come out of the metal chute. The holes are there, just not the bolts. And then when it's all said and done, there will be a protective silane layer that will let this structure stand for 50 or 90 more years. The biggest piece is that there's a radial crack, and you can see that kind of in this drawing that exists all the way around the lower courses of the block. And that's where, from the inside, we'll be placing an interior curb that will help to just support that for the next generation. And at this point, I'm willing to entertain any questions you guys might have about the project.
Thank you, appreciate you
Okay.
coming in. Any questions from commissioners? Yeah. Commissioner Jacoby.
The designation of the silo was before I was on the commission, and I was just curious, what is the historic aspect of the silo?
If I remember right, and it was a long time ago, I mean, there
Yeah.
was a farm, basically, it was another farmstead, right? And this
Okay.
was one of the few structures that still remained in any kind of state that could have been repaired, remediated, saved, right?
Okay.
A lot of the other buildings, if I remember right, were real kind of like loafing shed type and just sort of really falling apart.
Some people also think of it as a beacon when they're traveling on Highway 66 to know when to turn on Sundance. So that was one of the things that was brought up in some of the public communications that we've had for the duration of the project. So.
Right, and this was actually brought forth by a group of public folks.
It was.
That
It was a
yeah.
resident that lives on the golf course.
Right. I'm curious, it's hard to see here, but I'm seeing that truck and I'm seeing that silo and I'm seeing all those garage bays and I'm thinking, do you have a ring of bollards around this thing so that somebody doesn't end up backing
We
into
actually,
it?
let me just jump back here. We actually have sidewalk, concrete
Okay. Oh.
buffer, yep.
Yeah.
And so during construction, yes, there were type 1s and construction fence all along. We were definitely concerned there was a lot of activity that was happening. Now it's really just maintenance equipment coming in and out of the yard, so.
And I'm just curious, do you know if the masonry in that, I don't remember, is actual brick or if it's a clay tile? Like, is it hollow inside?
It is more of a block and
Okay.
it is hollow, yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, I think it's great to see this. Obviously, this stuff takes a long time from start to finish, and so I appreciate you coming in and giving us an update.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda would be the Beaupre Nishida Farm annexation. I assume staff, we've got a little report to walk through
Yeah, I
first.
just have a couple of bullet points, and then the applicant team here is here to talk through, to have a discussion with the commission. So just as background, this property was last discussed with this commission back in March of '23, so 2 years ago exactly, pretty much, as part of a Terry Lake sewer project. There was concern about the impact of the proposed sewer line that would serve this northern area on some of the historic farm buildings. Ultimately, the sewer line was rerouted to avoid impacting the historic farm buildings on this particular property. The county Historic Preservation Advisory Board has noted that these particular structures are eligible for landmark status in the county. There is an application for annexation of this property under consideration, which would include, development of the larger site. One of the, we do send applications out for referral comments to a range of agencies. In the case of annexations, they go to Boulder County. And one of the comments from Boulder County is they wanted to see the applicant coordinate with this commission to come up with some sort of historic preservation plan or some sort of condition that could be incorporated into the annexation agreement. So we're here tonight as the kind of first step so that there can be some dialogue between the applicant team and this commission. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cameron and Todd.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Come on up, it's fine, Cameron. So this is, just to clarify, we're in a proposal to annex. That's the process we're in right now?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So yeah, so there's an application under consideration for annexation. There's been one submittal. They're getting ready to do another submittal, but ultimately would need to go to Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council and such for final approval. So they're still in the early review processes. There is another planner who's reviewing this annexation. So, but we are in regular communication.
Okay, great, thanks.
Good afternoon.
Wait.
My name's Cameron Grant. I'm with Lyons Gaddis. I'm land use counsel for the applicant in the project. Also here today is Todd Hager with Galloway, who will give you a little more detail in just a minute. Just, as Jennifer mentioned, we're here to start the conversation about how to coordinate with the commission on an appropriate plan for the property, and did want to make a couple of kind of clarifying points as we begin that process, and then we're really interested in any feedback you have on how we can best provide additional information as we move forward through this. So first, since the Terry Lake Sewer project was going through, the applicant in the project has changed. So it's now the Empire Group that is pursuing this annexation and the eventual development of this site, that's in unincorporated Boulder County, as well as the site to the west that has already been annexed into the city. So we're pursuing an overall plan, but annexation is our next step in the process. You know, when Boulder County looked at this, and this has been looked at a couple of times, and I think it's all in your packet, there was a fairly detailed assessment of historic and cultural sites done back in 1997. You know, at that time they identified 15 notable either historic or cultural elements on the property. And subsequent to that, there was a study done in 2021 that determined that the bulk of the significant structures had been removed in the interim, and that now there were 5 of those original 15 are still remaining, and one of those 5 is a metal barn that was built in the 80s, and then there are 4 others that are much older. And so I think from our perspective, where we're focusing is what we're intending to do as we work through the process is obtain a current update to that 2021 study, and then come back and present those findings to you and say, okay, here's what today the world looks like today, and then based on that, we'd like to develop a meaningful plan moving forward. One of the concerns that we have identified, at least as our group at this stage, is that the condition of those 4 structures is somewhat questionable. Some would say very questionable, but that's why we really want the specialists to get in there and take a look and give us their assessment. So we are concerned with the deterioration that's occurred over the years, as those haven't been, properly, protected against the weather. No maintenance. No consistent policing of people getting access to them and doing all sorts of things. So that's kind of where we are in the process. We don't want to get confused by kind of the significant structures that were present in '97, which included the location where the actual vegetable sales occurred, the greenhouses, those sorts of. I mean, the real. I grew up here. Kind of my memory of Nishida Farms was there. These are associated with the Nishida family, but we don't. At least our 2021 study indicates that those were not as directly tied to that activity. So what I'm going to do is let Todd talk through a couple of the photos that we have, and then really we're just looking for some feedback from you, questions from you that we can consider as we go back to work and then prepare to come back again.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Yeah, all I need is the second slide of the annexation map.
This one?
Yeah, that one. I think it's the second, yeah. Yep, that would be perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I can. There you go.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Hello, Commission. As mentioned, my name is Todd Hager with Galloway. I'm just going to give you a little bit more background of the active application for the annexation itself. So as you see on the screen here, the highlighted area on the east side is really the annexation that is being processed with the city of Longmont right now. That comprises of 57.06 acres. With this annexation, if it were to be accepted, it would go through obviously a zoning designation, since it currently is with Boulder County, would be transitioning obviously to the city of Longmont. That proposed zoning would be a planned unit development or a PUD. That will be figured out a little bit more later on. But in addition to this area, which we'll call Beaupre Farm Annexation number 2 for conversation, Empire Group is basically proposing a cohesive development which is including the adjacent, as you can see on the west side, or the kind of the grayed out area, which is the Beaupre Farm property to the west. So these two in combination would reach around 153.4 acres. And then so since the Beaupre Farm property is already within Longmont's corporate, or not corporate, but city limits and zone plan unit development, it would be basically anticipate a mixed use development. So I'll give you a little bit more background on that, or what we're proposing. So the overall development is anticipated to include a diverse complement of single-family build-to-rent homes, traditional multifamily buildings, traditional single-family homes, townhomes, and commercial uses, as well as land dedications, which would include right-of-way, a future elementary school, a public park, and space for a regional detention facility. So those are all the components that would be essentially the overall development at the end of the day, pending obviously this annexation. So that's the kind of quick background for you all, and I'll hand it off to Jennifer or whoever else.
Actually, I think it might be helpful for the commission if you could point out where on this diagram the subject parcel is.
Yep. So they're going to be located right in this area. I don't know if I can zoom in at all, but they're going to be nestled right in this area. It does, on this plan, just go briefly into that detention area. And so this is what you're looking at, just a concept plan at this moment. But there is a transparency to it that you can kind of look at it. Oh, great.
Yeah, I was just hoping to get a sense of
Yep.
where in this big giant
Yeah,
map
reference.
we're
No,
talking
perfect.
about.
Yeah, so it's just nestled right into here. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Questions from commissioners for staff or representatives? Yeah. Commissioner Norton, go ahead and take her. Okay, Commissioner Norton.
Thank you for that presentation. Are you all anticipating any federal or state nexus in terms of like funding, permits, other activities that they might have to participate in for this overall development?
It's very early in the process. However, we are talking, certainly at the local level, about funding possibilities depending upon the mix of uses that come in, and then really depending upon where we go with the overall planning. I would say yes, with a sort of shrug. I think
Okay.
at this stage.
So if I may, is this getting at, are they proposing anything that would trigger a 106 review?
Absolutely, always. Yeah.
At this stage, I don't think that's on the radar yet, but
Okay.
anything's possible.
Okay. Just something to keep in mind as you guys explore a historic preservation plan.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other commissioner questions?
Do I need to turn this off?
No? You mentioned that the report, so the last report, the most recent one is June of 2021, right? So obviously, updating that would be important. I know that in the past, some of these reports have included some archaeological explorations, and I was going to ask Commissioner Norton if you want to comment on that. I mean, is that something that is recommended, required, suggested?
I think that if there is a CRM company that is doing an assessment, evaluating the potential for archaeological an archaeological assemblage is always recommended. 1940 is what the house dates back to. The really responsible part of me wants to say yes, please go like check out the archaeology, but the other responsible part of me says there's not a ton we're going to learn from 1940s deposits. They're very recent, so I'm not overly concerned. I would like to see it considered, but I think the buildings, I think to your point, are probably going to be more important in the evaluation.
Okay, thank you. And I guess so I went out there, took a look at the site when it first came up, however long ago that was. When the county referred it to us, I went out there again in anticipation of this meeting. And I would maybe compare it for the commission a little bit to the Zlatan, property in terms of, an agricultural homestead that had, development potential. What I see different here is the Zlatan property probably had more architectural interest and significance and richness to it. In particular, I think the barn that we ended up having saved had a fair amount of integrity and architectural interest. Obviously, the structures here, I think, are maybe weaker in terms of their value to the property at this point. And I think what the strongest point of this property is its history orally, right, and association. And so I guess one of the things that we talked about on this Latin property was, would the applicant end up creating some sort, making a full documentation of what was there to be sure that it's completely updated, and then B, having some sort of interpretive media of some kind that at least kept the story alive, right, of the property and of its history. Because what happens is, it gets developed and, in 10 years, people drive by it and say, oh, that's the Lone Pine development, and no one ever remembers it as the Nishida farm, and no one, people who went to the farm stand as a kid, don't talk about it anymore, and it just gets lost. And so I think, to me, looking at this, I mean, if the buildings were really amazing, I would be a champion of them. I'm not sure that I am.
Yeah.
But I do think making sure the story gets told is really important.
Yeah. I'm making a note to scratch Lone Pine from our.
Okay.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, Commissioner Lane. In discussions of how this takes shape, and again, it's early, right? There is a desire to come up with an appropriate way to memorialize, I don't know if that's the right term, the historic significance of the site. And there are a lot of opportunities for that, including some of the ideas that have come up, and this is kind of where we're curious for some feedback, would be in some of the residential communities, establishing a community garden that is, the Nishida garden, or doing something that actually talks of the history that we can put in other kind of public places in the community. So to the extent that you have any guidance, we're all ears for that. If you'd prefer us just to come up with some ideas and bounce them off of you, we'll do that as well. But I think where we are today, we want to kind of pursue both avenues, really understand what's out there today, the condition, identify what is significant if there is some preservation opportunity, and then whether there is or not, I think the other component is important for us as well. So,
yeah,
thank you.
I appreciate that. I guess the other thing I can think of to say would be, if we've already lost some of the more maybe important structures, is there any record? Can we recover any record of them, right? In order to basically document, right? Is there a photograph that shows those structures in the background that could be preserved and incorporated? Is there some other documentation, another plan, sketch, whatever that might be, any documentation that shows what this was at some point so that that story can be told? Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate the additional information and background. It is very helpful, and we appreciate your willingness to do that and to kind of continue the conversation. Any other comments or questions on this item? No? All right, great. Thank you. Okay. We will move on to some items from prior business. The first being a letter to historic landmark homeowners.
Yes, so something that we have discussed is that, it looks like the last letter we were able to find that was sent was done in 2018, basically to landmark owners saying, hey, by the way, your property is a landmark. Here's what that means. Here's how you can benefit from that. Have confirmed that we that we do have some available funds for doing a mailing, so we can get that done. So we have prepared an updated letter for consideration. We can beef it up, we can streamline it. I just wanted to run it by the commission before we started throwing it on letterhead, printing and mailing it out. Had an inquiry for someone who wanted to replace a single window that I kind of shot down and told them to come back with a better idea, and it would need to come to the commission. I haven't heard back from them, but that definitely was a, oh yes, we definitely need to do this moment. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that to this commission for discussion, consideration. If you're good with what we did, if you just want us to recycle with removing the 50th anniversary or 150th anniversary of the city information from the 2018 letter, we can do that as well. But yeah, just wanted to bring that to this commission.
Okay, thanks. Any commissioner comments?
I missed the letter. I wasn't at the retreat, so is it in the minutes?
Oh,
It should
be in the packet,
in
right?
the packet, yes. There is a draft of the packet under 10A.
It's page 181.
I'm sorry.
And if you want, it's right there. You can just read it.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the 2018 letter actually has a lot more, is a bit more detailed. But I just, it's one of those, do you send a 2-page letter that they're only going to read the first page of, or do you give them an overview with some links to websites and contact information for more information? So it's one of those, which approach does this commission prefer?
Yeah, I'm certainly a fan of short and sweet, but let's see, Commissioner Jacoby.
Yeah, the whole point of this letter is education, so I just have a thought that we may want to pursue or not. I live in a historic neighborhood, and all my neighbors and I go to all the open houses because it's always interesting to see what people have done to the interiors of these old places. And I've talked to a number of realtors when I've done this, and a lot of them have no clue as to what historic designation means when an owner buys a property. And I'm wondering, should we send, I don't know how many realtors there are in town, and certainly a lot of realtors from outside of town are selling homes to people here as well. But maybe we should send this letter to realtors in town as well. Just a thought. Because proactive education, I think, is so much better than a realtor pushing this house on somebody and then the person comes in and all upset and says, I want to replace my windows or whatever.
There is a Realtors Association in the area, so we could definitely come up with, put together something that is tailored to the real estate community for sure.
I think that might be really helpful.
Because as a planner, the words that strike me to my core are, but my realtor told me.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I don't love those either. Let's see, Commissioner Tarek.
Okay, yes, thank you. So, I mean, I think this letter is very important, and I may have missed something at the retreat, so if this was talked about, I apologize.
Okay.
But something that I've been thinking about, and something that was a theme of the conference last month, was that kind of the first step in getting people to buy in to preservation isn't necessarily, I think, this letter, but trying to reach them in a way that is more personal, that is more emotional, for them to understand preservation and like, so what if I want to, change the windows on my house, or I want to demolish this part of my house, or, I mean, I'm just thinking, small, but, and so the idea of, and I don't know if this is a letter or this is something else, this is a different kind of outreach, or like Rick was saying, education, is the idea of just getting people to buy in. And so they were talking about the idea of like, just making people think about 3 important places in your life, 3 places that tell like your life story, and making them think about it. Place could be there, doesn't have to be there anymore, it could be a place you still reside in, a place that's far away, whatever. And then having them kind of think about the stories related to the place, the people related to the place, emotions, your senses, but having them understand why preserving, and when we say a place, that could be so many different things, is so important to a person, a family, a community, a city, a state, a country. And so, and I don't know, I mean, if a letter does this or something else does this, but if you haven't already bought into preservation, and I get this, it's informative, but if I haven't bought into it, I don't think I'm going to follow up. And so I don't know if it's the letter or something else, but this feels like it has to be partnered with something else.
So I think there's 2 different audiences. Feel free to correct me if I'm misinterpreting. I feel like what you're talking about is the larger audience of people who might live in historic areas but maybe don't have a designated home. This would be specifically for people who already own landmark properties, to just kind of remind them that, hey, your house is a landmark, and if you want to change something, you need to come to us first. And also there are some incentives to help you that you could use. That's really, I think this is more targeted at people who own homes or own properties that are currently
But do people
landmarked.
who own designated houses have a desire to?
have a legal obligation.
They have a legal
Okay.
obligation, yeah.
But, okay.
This is just a reminding
This is
them
just
that,
that, okay.
this is one of the,
I guess I was trying to reach people in a different way,
Yeah.
so
I think there's,
they feel more empowered to do it than to just like, I have to do this, but
I think it's maybe not different audiences, but it's different purposes. This is just the reminder of,
okay.
hey, don't change out a window or knock out a wall outside
Okay,
without
okay.
letting us know first. And oh, by the way, you might be able to get some tax credits if you.
Okay,
If you
all right,
if
maybe
you- if it
that
meets
is a
certain-
different audience and purpose.
Yeah, it might be, but I definitely get what I definitely get what you're saying.
Is there an avenue or a way to have a different purpose and audience to get people to better understand and buy into preservation?
I think it might be step 2, unless others have a different idea.
Well, I mean, we certainly have the notion of, there are other properties, other homes in these historic neighborhoods and outside of the designated neighborhoods that would be eligible for landmark status, and those have not been brought in by the owners for whatever reason. Maybe they think it's overly restrictive or so on. And so I think there's a broader audience to reach out to, potentially to show them that it's not necessarily a horrible thing to come in here and talk to us, right? That we're not going to make them do all kinds of things that they don't want to do with their house. They might still feel that in the end. But I think that's maybe a little more what I feel like when I listen to you talk about that. Now, having said that, looking at this, I do think we could make a major improvement by just moving the paragraph around, the leading with the key benefit and not throwing that at the end, right? Because it's sort of like a little whack on the hand and then a soothing balm at the end. I'd rather just start with the balm. So I think that even just reorganizing a little bit of the approach is really.
No, that makes sense.
Right?
Okay.
A good thing. And then I know we don't necessarily always have the budget for this, but, you know, I do notice in my utility bills that everything's in an infographic now because that's just much more like soluble. So if we have that capacity to cheer this up with a little brochure infographic kind of stuff instead of a letter, it might get paid at slightly more attention to, which is also a
I will,
kind of
I will,
thinking
I will
about what you're
defer to my
saying.
person who has InDesign on her computer at the office.
Yeah, you know, it just is reality.
Oh,
right?
no,
I
totally.
mean, there's a lot of people, maybe we get half as much engagement just because there's a couple of pretty pictures and it's more fun. So, fair enough, I appreciate the comments. Yeah.
We have some in-house capabilities where we can do that now.
Excellent.
so.
I think, well, has anybody else on the commission got a comment about that? If not, okay, Commissioner Jacoby, hold on. Okay, Commissioner Jacoby.
I was just going to say that's an excellent idea because being involved with my neighborhood, it's so hard to get word out. And if we were to try to send a letter to say every house that's not designated in the historic districts, that would be a bunch of letters and that'd be very expensive. It's very hard to reach these people, but I think if we could get into the utility flyer, that would be wonderful because that goes to everybody. And maybe some comments about how the house doesn't have to be from 1886 to be historically designated, that it's anything before the 1970s that's interesting, we would be interested in talking to them about. And just providing that sense of recognition of the community as it stands now as an asset. So, but that's a great idea.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is we infographic up the letter for landmark property owners and reach out to our friends in utility billing to see if there's a way to incorporate some broader information in the utility bill.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I think that's good. Let's see. Welcome, Commissioner Barnard, and you have the floor.
Thank you. My apologies. Some reason had in my mind 6 o'clock, and I thought I was 15 minutes early. In fact, I've been sitting in my car for 5 minutes because I didn't want to get in here too early. I had sent a note to Maria, and I don't know if she mentioned it, but there were 2 misspellings of sesquicentennial in the retreat minutes. Extra M got in there somewhere, I don't know.
Okay. We did not have your skill and adeptness available to us, so we did approve the minutes, but I'm sure those minor corrections can be
Yeah,
made
it's
without
not-
any
it's nothing substantive.
adjustment to the motion.
She has my notes on it.
All right, thank you, and sorry we missed you earlier. Okay. Yes, sorry, is that right? Sorry. We missed you, yes. Yes. Thank you. Eat shoots and leaves, that kind of thing. Okay, great. I think that's very positive direction. Last big item on our agenda is solar panel standards. We talked about this at a meeting last year, and we talked about it a little bit also at the retreat. So thank you for following up on that.
So I'm going to bring Melanie Neske up to the podium to discuss this, since she has been spearheading the research and moving forward. So I guess the question is, we have before us this evening is the approach to take, and some information was provided in the packet. So with that, I'll turn it over to Melanie.
Yes. Hello, thank you all. A little short. Go there. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm associate planner, work with Jennifer And I've been reviewing these guidelines. We touched a little bit on that at the retreat just to see if there were any specific areas we wanted to look into. So I did take a look at the Secretary of the Interior, NREL, National Alliance for Preservation Commissions, as well as local municipalities like Denver. You'll see some more of the snippets of Denver's code in the packet as well. It was nice to see there was a lot of similarity between the guidelines across the board. The general principles stand with the intention to preserve the historic structures' energy efficient features as they are, porches, operable windows, maintaining the original materials, and aligning the installation with our historic preservation guidelines. I think the really helpful aspects of the, particularly Denver's guidelines, shows where on the roof placement would be ideal for historic properties, as well as minimizing the visibility with offsetting some of the panels 3 feet from the roof lines, and having some direction for screening if they wanted to do it not on the historic structure, but perhaps on the historic property as well. So most of these are going to be best practices that were recommended for various types of roofs and setbacks, accessory structures, and installation considerations to ensure that they would be removable from the historic features. I think one important thing to note, or there are some that came up actually at the retreat with the coverage, tree coverage often limits the location that you can put for solar installation. So for Denver's code in particular, they allowed for accessory structures, solar panels to be installed anywhere on the roof. One thing that came up in some other aspects were if they would be visible from the public right of way, that it should come before the Historic Preservation Commission for your review. So these were general guidelines for staff to sort of get ahead of it before we had any additional applications. So just curious to see how these stand with you and at what point you might want to see some of these projects come before, for accessory structures or corner buildings, those sorts of things.
Great, thank you, and thanks for putting all that information in the packet. Commissioners, questions, comments? Okay. Commissioner Norton?
So both in your packet and in some of the conversation that I saw on the CLG listserv this week, the freestanding solar panels are an option, which I don't think is something we have, as a commission, have discussed much. Is that, we're thinking about it from a historic point of view. If you're sticking a pole with something tall on it in your neighborhood, are there additional committees or planning steps that an applicant would have to go through in addition to speaking to us? How complicated do these, different types of solar installations get for the applicant?
That is a very interesting question. I would expect that we would possibly treat it as an accessory structure of some sort, and it would fall under those guidelines. That's something, I don't know that we've had that question arise, and it's a pretty interesting one for sure. That's something we'll have to talk about internally. I don't know that we've had any proposals for that, but my expectation is that it would have to meet our accessory structure standards, which typically are that it has to be, not in the front yard, behind the home, behind the front plane of the house. So I don't see why we wouldn't treat it that way.
Okay, sorry, I turned my mic off and then realized I might have a follow-up. In that case, is that the type of solar installation that would even come in front of this commission, or are there certain ways that we could streamline that conversation? And I don't have an opinion either way. I don't know how this commission would feel about that.
Well, my guess would be if it's a landmark property that it would, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not a landmark property, then it wouldn't necessarily. Is that
It seems that we
reasonably
would
correct?
probably treat it no differently than if someone wanted to put a detached garage or an ADU on their property. It would need to come just to ensure that the placement was sensitive.
I can tell you from experience working in another municipality, they didn't have any regulations on windmills, basically, a structure. And then somebody put it in their yard, and the entire community went completely nuts. And I was serving on a planning commission at that time, and we spent 6 months writing a part of a development code language for, how to deal with these wind and solar installations. And then no one ever built another one after that.
Guessing it wasn't a cute Dutch windmill.
No, it was not. But it just takes one, right? One person who wants to fly a pole of, canopy photovoltaics and the name of green whatever, and all hell could break loose. So it's a good question. Other questions, comments?
Quick one.
Yeah.
I'm
Commissioner Sibley.
Yeah, so I was looking in the packet about the freestanding and detached ones, and there are mentions in that about, having it not visible from right-of-ways and things like that, and I didn't see anything additional that, like from what you guys brought up. I mean, what Denver has already written seemed pretty decent, so just wanted to throw that in, that it seems like that's pretty, I couldn't think of anything else other than what Denver already wrote.
Okay, thank you. My comment would be, I really like the Historic Preservation, the National Association of Historic Preservation Commission's simple set of guidelines. Because again, it's got a lot of pictures, nice big text, graphics. Like you're trying to give a homeowner this thing. They are not reading the NREL report. It's not happening. If I think it's good to be aware of it, and to, if someone came in, who's using an architect and they had a bigger project and they wanted to do this and they weren't really aware, you could say to their architect, hey, have you read this report? Because we're people who read stuff like this. But a homeowner is not. Maybe an uber excited engineer might, but most people will not. So I am in favor of using that, the Alliance Preservation Commission, guideline as our kind of referral document, and along with that diagram from the Denver one, right? Because it just really super clearly illustrates what is good and what is not. And then maybe leave it more or less at that, with the caveat that, if you want to, again, at staff's discretion, if it's on the backside of an accessory building off an alley or something, because that's the way it faces, it's probably no big deal. And if it's somebody wants to do something that's really going to have an impact on street front, then they ought to come here, right? I mean, that's just the kind of common sense thing. So that's where my head is going. Let's see, Commissioner Tarek.
I was first going to say, I agree very much with you, and I was looking at, what is the NAPC, is that what it is? The Standard 2 and Standard 9, where it said conform to the Secretary of Interior standards, and both of those recognize, like where it says new additions, alterations, but that we need to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment, and it talks about, so the environment could also be, your yard or your space around your house. So I thought both of those standards kind of fit nicely, and we could use them to help if it's something freestanding.
That's a good point. Anyone else with any comments? If not, then staff, do you feel like you have a decent amount of direction as to how to handle this? And I don't know that we really need any kind of formal motion for this, right?
I don't
it's
think
just
we
giving
do.
you
I
enough
think it's just
guidance.
directing staff, should we receive inquiries regarding solar panels in the future to use the NAPC and NAPC guidance document plus the graphics from Denver to help direct applicants in the right direction.
Great. Yeah.
And so if it's something visible from the street, we would bring it to the commission. If it's not, then it can be handled administratively. That's what I'm getting. And then if it's freestanding, if for some reason we get a freestanding one, that's something I would need to discuss with our planning team, but I anticipate we would treat that like an accessory structure.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Barnard.
Yes, Steve, I thought this would probably be, this was a good discussion, and I learned a lot from it, and I think the direction is good, but I also think this would be something that we should post for public comment, because this is going to affect how people are, choices that people are going to be able to make. And, when we change the way that the system's going to operate, I think we should get some input into it.
That's a fair point. I mean, essentially, that would involve making an official, basically putting this back on the agenda as a public hearing item, saying this is our plan. Basically, everything, Jennifer, that you just brought back, essentially putting that in a package, saying this is on the agenda, this is a public comment, and if anyone, I think that's a good idea. That way, if anyone really does care and want to talk about it, they can come, and we've done that due diligence. And if no one talks about it and no one has any new ideas, then we can just stamp it and let it go away. But I think that's
Okay.
fair. That's a good point.
And I'll confirm that direction with our council as well.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Barnett. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I'll plan to post this for public comment, essentially, unless I get direction otherwise from our legal team, post it for the April meeting, not the August meeting.
Yes. Okay, sounds wonderful. All right. Well, great. That was a lot in an hour. So, thank you. Yeah. All right. Do any of our HBC commissioners have any comments that they would like to make? Yes, Commissioner Norton.
Yeah, just following up on our Beaupre Farms conversation. As we start talking about potential like mitigation for the historic site, I wonder if it would be worth talking to the museum and Eric to see if there's anything on their wish list that, we could ask for if we're talking about other types of recording or getting the story out in our spirit of collaboration.
It would appear that I have an opportunity to do that on April 18th at 2:30. Great, I appreciate that. Either of our reserve commissioners have anything they'd like to offer? No? Okay, thank you. All right, and we do not have a representative from City Council present this evening, so at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'll make the motion to adjourn.
And a second? Second. Okay. We have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Norton and a second from Commissioner Jacoby. All in favor? Aye. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your time this evening.
We were a punchy group.